covering the stories that impact your life, your town, your state, and your future. This is the Means Report with your host, Brad Means.
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Means Report. We certainly appreciate you spending part of your day with us, where today we are going to continue to indulge my fascination with all things traffic and how our towns work and how people get around roads and bridges and curbs and anything that makes drivers happier. So much goes on behind the scenes from your city leaders and from the private sector that you're not aware of that makes your commute easier. Also, big money, as we reported on the news this past week, for more buses. We're going to talk to one of the folks in charge of Augusta Public Transit to find out what that means for mass transit in the Garden City. And then, of course, we'll wrap up this edition of the Means Report, as we always do, with ways that you can stay in touch and help us get more great guests. Like my first one, Steve Castle, no stranger to this community. We're so glad to have him back on News Channel 6. He does so much in the world of infrastructure and some of the things I mentioned just now. Steve, thanks for all you do and thanks for being here.
Nah, thanks, Brad. It's been a long time, but it's good to see you again.
Good to see you too. You worked as an engineer in Richmond County, right, and then of course in Columbia, and now in the Columbia County, now in the private sector as a principal at Infrastructure Systems Management. Mm-hmm. So let me just kind of start with what do you do at ISM? Are you still mostly consumed as you used to be with traffic issues?
Yeah, actually, the City of Augusta is still our largest client. I do work on some stuff that actually I helped fabricate when I was there. That's how long it takes projects to come forward.
Wow.
But John's doing a great job over there. I'm glad that he's over there. But yeah, pretty much what I do is traffic engineering. We also do have a large with the Parks and Rec department. But we do a lot for the city right now, and we're happy to have him as a client, and we'll continue to serve.
What's infrastructure? How would you define it? I sometimes just think of when I'm driving around, well, this street, that curb, those lights, this is infrastructure. What is it?
Infrastructure is basically everything you don't notice until it doesn't work.
Right.
So it's like your sore thumb. You know, it's like, I don't realize how much I use my thumb until it's sore, but if it breaks down, because infrastructure is the roadway, it's your phone, it's everything that helps us function on a daily basis. So when it doesn't work, if it makes you mad, then that's probably infrastructure is something you need every day.
Yeah, seriously. So when you're talking about streets and things like that we need and we don't want them to break, would you say as a whole our infrastructure in this city, in this country, is on the older side? Is it on the verge of being outdated, and so there's this constant need to keep it updated?
Yeah, I mean, typically it's going to last about 50 years. So if you look at like our highway system, for instance, a lot of that was planned under Eisenhower after World War II. So, I-20 was built in 1964. And so it's on that 50-year hiatus right now. So the bridge across Savannah River is being replaced. And so a lot of it is, you could stretch it out through maintenance, but, maintenance dollars are tough to come by. So a lot of it, has to be rebuilt over time, and, capacity, because you're doing everything based on projections, and sometimes, it outgrows itself. But, and that's a good thing, and infrastructure is always going to lag development in the private sector, So, you see it like sometimes they come before you build it. And
right.
So, and that's just you don't want to build these bridges to nowhere. So most of the time it's following that. But yeah, I mean, the infrastructure, I think in Augusta is pretty good, but, we're still a storm away from some bad stuff to happen too.
They come before you build it. Is that Columbia County, Georgia, in one sentence?
Well, it's sort of this area right now. If you look at Sutter Mill when the gold rush hit San Francisco, it wasn't prepared for that either. So when you have a large influx, it's a good thing. But but we're catching up. I know Columbia County just built the diverging diamond out there on Lewiston Road. And when they first built that bridge, it was over capacity immediately because the growth came so quick.
Right.
But now it's like it was bad, and all of a sudden it's fixed, and nobody remembers it. So it's real easy when you build stuff for 50-year projections. It looks good the first day it's open. So.
Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself because my Columbia County questions were going to come a little bit later in this segment. But just to stay on that topic, so if I'm hearing you do see a day when there's not so much congestion in Columbia County, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that the great folks out there are constantly trying to keep up with the incredible growth. Do you picture a day when everything's smooth?
Yes, I mean, it's always going to be difficult, because sometimes things get built in the way. So some of it's not necessarily road widenings. Sometimes it's new roads. You need connectivity and things like that. Like downtown Augusta has a very good grid network. So there's 50 ways to get everywhere. Columbia County is a little bit limited because it was large property owners at one time, and so the roadway system followed the property lines, and so you have long stretches of road, so you don't have as good of a grid network. But they're through widening and intersection improvements. It's getting there for sure.
That's great information, and it's so true because of the property owners and the situation, the property lines. You mentioned the length of time it takes, and some of your Richmond County projects that were planted years ago are now starting to blossom. What's the reason for that red tape? Is it having to go through all the government agencies?
Well, it's that, and it's the funding. There's a lot of things that need to be done. When you got a large population like Columbia and Richmond County, you need stuff for them to do. You need parks. You got other demands for people to have other than just roadways and stuff like that. You got the water utility that has to follow. The sewer system has to stay up to date. But if you look at a SPLOST, which is where most of the capital money comes to do the big projects, even when you pass a SPLOST, you still got to collect the money. And so there's always a lag for that. Then you have to design it. There's all kinds of federal requirements that go into that. State federal requirements for design. It used to be that you just got kind of just a typical layout, and then you could go out there and build it in the field. Now there's so many things that have to be done before it's stamped and sealed and go to construction. And then if you got to buy right of way, then you got to negotiate with property owners, and there's always an issue with that too.
All right, so you've talked about right of way, you mentioned widening. When a municipality or other entity comes to infrastructure systems management, whether it's here in Georgia or through y'all's operations in South Carolina or elsewhere, and they say, help me with traffic flow, what are some other techniques that you use other than adjusting the road to make it wider or otherwise?
Oh, signal timing is always a good one. You can use, back in 2008 when we had I think Obama came up with the stimulus package, we put some adaptive signals on Washington Road, which could constantly adapt and change with the traffic. Columbia County had them on Washington Road, and we at one time had the largest adaptive corridor in the world.
How do they know when to change? Is it through cameras that see the traffic and adjust accordingly?
Well, an old traffic signal used to cycle like a clock, so it had to go left through, they didn't go all the way around. This one can jump around. It can actually do a left turn and jump in and address what's there in the traffic.
Because it sees it?
Yes, it's reading it, and then like during the Masters, we manage traffic, so we would have people there who watch it. We could actually take over the signal and flush out things if they got backed up.
Yeah.
And so that's really the future if you could have active management of the traffic. And I don't know what AI is going to do, but I'm sure that's going to eventually get involved in some sort of traffic engineering. But everybody always talked about Die Hard. When they turned all the lights green, that can't happen.
That can't.
But no, there's a. I never say never, but
I hear you.
You never dare the dark web.
Right.
But no, that's where to take advantage of the capacity you have. And new philosophies are coming out. You even look at the diverging diamond, have flipping people to the other side of the road, because that's to take away the left turn movement. Because a through movement and a right turn movement, I can get three through for every left. For one, so the capacity goes up. So if you look at what I did when we did the Master, we banned the left turns, we made them all go through. So it's 3-1.
No, it makes sense. Let me get a couple more quick questions in. I knew our time would fly by. First of all, the viewers want to know, Alexander Drive and Riverwatch, I don't want you to step on John Usry's toes, but that used to be your territory. Why in the world can only 2 cars get through when you're coming off of Alexander onto Riverwatch? Why there at the village at Riverwatch is that light so painfully short?
Well, right now, I've actually got a study. We're going to try to reconfigure some of the lanes coming out. When it was done on projections, it had 2 left turn lanes coming out of the Costco development. And so you've got some capacity issues. And unfortunately, one of the things that does happen every once in a while is pedestrian buttons get stuck.
Oh.
And so if a pedestrian button gets stuck, that messes with the coordination as well as the signal timing, and it takes away from things because it's not time typically for a pedestrian to cross unless they push a button.
All right, let me ask you mentioned the Masters. I think Berkman's Road and roundabouts are your legacy, Steve Castle. I mean, you transformed, and I know there was a team, AB and others, AB Ladson, his partner. But man, Berkman's is a work of art, and we love the roundabouts, I think. Are you a big fan of the work you did on Berkman's, and can we see more roundabouts in our future here and elsewhere?
I hope so. I love the single lane roundabouts. I'm not a big fan of the multi-lanes.
Okay.
But,
yeah, multi-lanes are confusing.
Yes, I agree. And if you don't have enough traffic there, they can actually be a little bit, you don't want people to switch lanes in the middle of them. But I love a single lane roundabout. Willard at Almond was like one of the best ones. I love that one. And then also the north leg at Milledgeville Road. If you don't remember what that was like, if you never drove through that, that backed up all the way to Gordon Highway. That was a huge fix for that area. But no, I love them. They're, the accidents are much less severe. If you have an ice storm and the power goes out, it still functions unlike a light. So, if you look at a typical signal, I need 3 sheriff's deputies there to manage a signal that's out, whereas a roundabout, I don't need any. So you free up resource.
Let me finish with this, and I mentioned legacy, and ice storm certainly falls into that category. Steve, you got this town cleaned up, some $12, $17 million, can't remember which, worth of debris and dangerous places that you made go away so that our lives could be restored to normal nearly a decade ago now. Did our ice storm equip you to deal with disasters and other issues in other towns where ISM works?
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot from the ice storm. Probably lost about 2 or 3 years out of my life on the same time, especially how things work. But it was actually looking back. It's what they call it type 2 fun, where it's not fun in the moment, it's fun later.
Yeah.
But I had a great team. AB was very supportive, and the commission was very supportive. I mean, I needed to go before them and ask them to bet a lot of money to clear this up, because that happened in February. We had a marathon we had to clean up for. It had been in 2 weeks, and we had the Masters coming in. When that wasn't necessarily the guiding factor, but it was a health and safety issue too.
Sure was.
There's like 600,000 cubic yards of debris and we did it in 3 months. So no, it was a good time, and that was a lasting legacy, I guess. I always remember it, and then when that date comes around, I'm like, it's not Valentine's Day. It's the 10th year anniversary of the.
It's the ice storm anniversary.
But no, it was. I think that people. I think it had a bad rap. I got a lot of support from the people in the public. But there was a lot of negativity surrounded it at the time that really was unfounded, to be honest with you. But it was a big disaster. It was. It hit everywhere in the county. It was like a hurricane. It was like a Category 2 hurricane, basically.
Well, it was life-changing for all of us, and as I mentioned, you made things a lot easier, and so I appreciate you for what you're doing for us locally and for what Infrastructure Systems Management is doing across this country. Thank you for that.
All right, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Steve Castle, our special guest today. I love to talk to people who love their jobs. It's just a great feeling, and I learned so much today. We're going to learn more about Augusta's mass transit system in a moment. They just got a boatload of money. Find out how they're going to put it to good use when we come back.